Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. The Road to Autonomy is brought to you in part by Stantec Generation AV. Stantec Generation AV combines some of the most experienced AV experts in the industry with the resources of a global engineering firm. Stantec Generation AV provides education, consulting, assessment, and guidance to any industry interested in autonomous vehicles. Learn more at stantec.com. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to be joined by Matteo Del Sorbo, Executive Vice President, Magna New Mobility, Magna International. Matteo, welcome to the podcast.
Grayson, thanks for having me today. I'm very excited. Between 16-hour flights to India and shoveling snow here in Toronto, this is a fun break for me.
Oh, good. It's a fun break for us because we're going to learn a lot. Magna, you're engineering the future. You have a global focus. And before we get into India, which I'm really curious with you, I want to start on my favorite topic, autonomy, and add some context and some numbers here. Matteo, since 2017, $7.3 billion a year on average, I repeat, $7.3 billion a year on average has been invested in the development of autonomous vehicles globally. With that fact in mind, those financials in mind, how is Magna approaching autonomy?
Yeah, that's a huge number. And I don't know the exact number myself, but I know that companies have spent billions and billions of dollars to develop autonomous vehicles. What's interesting for me is kind of dissecting that spend, whether it's to achieve full autonomy or what people reference as L5, or simply the development of various ADAS systems, which are supported by products like cameras, radars, lidars, etc. Our approach at Magna here is to develop robust and reliable features that fulfill the needs of the market, our customers, the regulations. And while we still have a careful eye to the future and the megatrends that impact mobility and, in the end, autonomous driving.
Why take that approach? Is that just based on the conservative heritage of Magna, where you're trying to go where your customers tell you to go?
It's a little bit of that, but I still think, I've said this for many years, and I think as Magna we've said it, that full autonomy is still far away. I mean, we have specific use cases in cities that have demonstrated full autonomy in the use of L5 technology, but the widespread application is still beyond the current automotive cycles. And listen, I went to Phoenix and I had the Waymo app on my phone and I called the robotaxi and I went to Starbucks. It was super cool. And it was actually literally the same price as Uber. Do I see this happening in downtown New York on a snowy day in January in the near future? I don't think so. But in the desert, it worked. It was super cool. And I would use it if I was there again.
You hit the nail on the head. And I said this to Waymo many times for many years. Chandler, Arizona, once you go outside there, you have Scottsdale. It's a destination. It's a golf capital. It's a spa capital. People go there to relax, vacation, and play golf. When do we get to the point where that experience that you described that you had in Chandler gets integrated into the overall resort experience? You go to and from the airport, you're not stressed out. We're going to go play this golf course or that golf course. We're not stressed out. We're going to go in an autonomous vehicle. When does it become part of the tourist experience?
I think that's available already today if people want to apply it. You know, when you start thinking of defined routes and some sort of geofenced environment, the edge cases are very different and they're very few. And so as a result, it would work. The question is whether or not there's enough volume and scale to really get the business case to work in that specific environment. I think you still need to have large scale use of autonomy in order to offset the cost of, equipping these vehicles with full autonomous stacks, even though you have the savings of removing the driver today.
We're still in the early innings. We still have to figure out the business case and what the repay is going to be back for the engineering cost that seems to go one way up. But at some point, the technology is going to work. The technology is going to scale. But what we're seeing in the market today, we're seeing consolidation. We're seeing the market and we're seeing the financiers strengthen around a few select players. As the market, I'm calling it a very healthy market, a strengthening market. As the market strengthens around, let's say, a few individual players, what role does Magna play in this consolidated market? Do you try and cut deals with those players since, okay, Mr. Market has determined that those are going to who the winners are going to be ultimately?
Yeah, I think you've got it right. I mean, we're going to play a very important role in autonomy and ADAS. You know, Magna, we're a mobility and technology supplier, and we do actually have a deep experience in ADAS and autonomous technology. You may have seen the recent announcement regarding the acquisition of Veoneer's active safety business, and I think this positions Magna as a top global ADAS supplier, providing expertise in cameras and radars, all the things you need for autonomy, as these are the building blocks to get to a full autonomous driving scenario.
It's smart. I think it was a very smart acquisition. I think it's going to play well for your business. ADAS market, it's growing. And then the autonomy market's growing at the same time. It's going to be really interesting when those two markets intersect. And I want to give Magna credit because there are certain companies, large OEMs, that have abandoned autonomy and only focus on ADAS. And at some point, they're going to be left behind. But the leadership at Magna says, no, we're going to do both. And I think that's going to prove to be very well for the companies. We saw it with the acquisition there with Vinner. Overall, how do you see the mobility markets today? There's a lot of different parts of the mobility markets. There's the human-driven vehicles. There's the micro-mobility markets. There's the autonomy. And then there's the new emerging segment of personally owned autonomous vehicles. How do you overall think about the markets today?
I think it's very volatile, to say the least. There's so many moving pieces. You've said it. There's new technology. There's new players. But there's also existing solutions that work well. And I think those will continue to be a solution for mobility in the future around the world. When I hear legislations about we're not going to sell ICE vehicles by this date in certain jurisdictions, I always wonder whether this is going to be really possible. So in the end, things still need to shake out in the mobility landscape. You need to have a careful eye to what's happening today, but also what's happening in the future. And that balance, I think, is what allows us to be a continued force in this market.
Balance is key. It was interesting. I was having a conversation with an individual the other day. So we have to have hard conversations nobody wants to have. And you're right. We have to find the balance. It's not practical to ban ICE vehicles. It's really just a political statement more than something grounded in reality or grounded in facts. The one thing that we can all agree on, mobility is changing. Certain markets will embrace different forms of mobility before others. The United States will probably be one of the first markets to go all in on autonomy, as we're seeing, just because of the regulatory landscape and 3,000 miles coast to coast. But then there's the global markets. And I want to dive into India here. It's a country of 1.4 billion individuals. It's on track to surpass China this year as the most populous country. So you have a booming population. But on the other side, the economy is projected to slow to 6.5 to 6.8% GDP because of global weakness. With that in mind, what new mobility opportunities are still untapped in the market of India? Is it going to be micro? Is it going to be a form of electrification? What opportunities are untapped in the market of India?
I think yes and yes to what you just said, but I've always said that not all solutions work in all markets. And I think micro-mobility is a perfect example. Certain solutions work well in one geographic region, but not in another. And you need to really understand the market, the needs, the people that drive the right solution. So let me give you an example and some fun facts about India. By the way, a beautiful country. Try and follow my logic. So you said large population, 1.4 billion people. And then every day you've got millions of people traveling from rural areas to urban centers on trains. But India has very poor infrastructure once you get to these urban centers. And so there's not a really good connection point for them to achieve their final place of commerce, or let's say to go to their economic activity. Another limiting factor in India is it's a place where nearly 80% of the population doesn't have a driver's license. This again limits the possibility for people to move around. So poor infrastructure, can't drive cars. This has driven a huge need for two-wheelers, and it's really one of the largest markets in the world for two-wheelers. And the last fun fact I'm going to give you is India is actually a well-connected country when it comes to mobile phones. More than 1 billion people have mobile phones. So with these factors, you created a need for a specific product. Low speed, so you don't need a license. Two-wheelers, less expensive. Shared, low cost, accessible with smartphones because you need an app. And overall, these electric scooters are also supporting the government's mandate to go green. Now you've got a cost-effective solution. It's sustainable, it's accessible, and this has been the winning solution in India that we've decided to tap into. Will it work elsewhere? For sure. Will it work everywhere? Probably not, but this was a market right for the solution.
Okay. First thing, all electric, I'm a fan of, but you said poor infrastructure. Is there enough energy infrastructure there to support this?
There is, and I think infrastructure is always the key to how you successfully deploy, and where you have power access will dictate how you can operate. If we speak about specifically what we're doing with Yuma Energy, which is our battery as a service business in India, we have a three-pronged approach. So we have what we're calling Yuma Clouds. These are kind of central depots where we do mass charging of batteries, and they're usually outside of the city. So we have a better access to power and also lower costs. And then we bring these kind of fully charged batteries to the urban centers. We then have Yuma Max stations. These are smaller swap locations located in dense areas where we can do some charging based on the limited grid situation, but it's also based on where the demand is. And then we have these final max points where we don't have the infrastructure to support charging. So we just offer the fully charged batteries. And this is where people can go also to get a swap.
Okay, so you're addressing the infrastructure needs. Let's start breaking this down here. I like the Yuma Cloud depots, it's where you're going to do the mass charging. Are you putting in battery storage backup there? Are you putting in virtual power plants? How are you generating that energy there?
So we're working directly with the governments and the power supply to get exactly what we need for the deployment in that geographic area. So we know based on our anchor customers, how much people are swapping, where the need is. And based on that, we staff up the battery charging infrastructure in our plant based also on what's available from the grid.
That's really smart. You hear horror stories. Horror stories here in America as companies are trying to go electric and they can't get the utility to be nice to them. And it's I call it the hurry up and wait game. 6-8 months of the utility runs the power there. What is it like in India dealing with the government and the utility providers? Are they very bullish on this? Are you able to get the energy when you need it instead of what I described here in America as the hurry up and wait show?
I will tell you, it's challenging like it is in all jurisdictions. And certainly in India, it's also very challenging. I think the benefit in India that they have come out and have a very open mandate to go electric. They know they won't solve it with cars. They know they can solve it with two-wheelers. Battery swapping is easier, obviously, with smaller batteries. And so with their support and their mandate to go green, they're actually generating a lot of renewable energy already. And this supports what we're trying to do with Yuma Energy and what we're trying to do with swappable batteries for two-wheelers.
Swappable batteries, it seems to be a trend. A while ago, I was pitched on a rickshaw company out of India that wanted to do swappable batteries. A lot of markets around the world say no to swappable batteries. Why is it resonating in India? Is it because of the way that the infrastructure is designed, or is there something deeper that's causing battery swapping to really resonate?
I think it's a combination of a few things. The first is it's already a huge market for two-wheelers, and swapping batteries for two-wheelers is significantly easier than for four. There are some companies that have tried to do that and are doing that in China, but the question will always be these large batteries and whether they're interoperable between different car companies, which I think will be very, very difficult. Whereas on a smaller battery platform for two-wheelers, that's going to be a little bit easier. And so I think you've got this balance of a huge market of two-wheelers. You've got a huge mandate to go from gas to electric. So all of these, I think there's around almost 200 million two-wheelers in India today. So they've got to switch over to electric over the next 10 years. And as a result, it's created a demand. And I think the demand is what's leading us to be there.
You have 200 million two-wheelers. There's a mandate from the government essentially to move them to electric. Is that where Magna comes in because you understand engineering, you understand scaling?
Yeah, absolutely. Scaling is what really excites me about this business. I'll be honest with you, Grayson. It also keeps me up at night. We're in rapid growth mode now. So I'll give you some more stats just because I like numbers. Yulu Energy or Yulu Mobility, which is our anchor customer. So they're the electric two-wheel platform that we've invested in. They have 10,000 scooters. Really, they're mopeds. They're electric mopeds. They're not like kick scooters like we know here in North America. They've got 10,000 scooters on the road over the last 4 years. We're now going to be adding 10,000 new units every month for the next 12 months. So by the end of the year, we'll have over 100,000 units. So the scaling is really a huge undertaking. We're bringing, obviously, our presence in India. Magna's in India today. We have huge support staff there. From an engineering perspective, we're also very well positioned. We have expertise across the entire vehicle. When we talk about a four-door or four-wheeled vehicle, we take a full systems approach. And this is for four wheels, three wheels, two wheels. We're able to do that. We got deep knowledge in ECUs, electronics, and we're really looking at the full battery enclosure system. And we feel that we've got the opportunity to support Yulu from a two-wheel perspective and Yuma from a battery perspective to make this a winning solution for us.
You're onto something here. Blitz scaling from 10,000 new units currently to 10,000 new units a month. So you have 120,000 new units a year. That's a big thing. Where was it? Did you go on a expedition around the world and said, okay, we're going to go explore emerging markets to find growth opportunities? What initially drove you to India?
Yeah, so absolutely. It comes from data. I gave a speech at a management offsite last year about purpose, right? Yeah. You have to have purpose when you're looking to deploy a new product in a new market. And so we did our homework. There was an expedition. We obviously had some support from some outside companies. We saw that this had worked in another market that had very similar characteristics to India. And that market had already been, I'd say, exhausted, but it was based on the same thing: large population, large quantity of two-wheelers, mandate to go electric. And so once we did that and collected the data, we knew we had an opportunity in a few different markets. India was one of those markets. And so it came down to, is this a country where we operate? Yes, we currently employ 5,000 people in India. So it was a market that we knew. We had already established our other kind of core products there. And it gave us the confidence that we could scale up in a new product line. It also helped that we developed a new group at Magna called Magna New Mobility that was focused on leveraging the tech building blocks that Magna has around the world to bring new mobility solutions to the market. And this was perfect. It was safer, it was cleaner, it was more cost effective. And that's how we ended up with India.
You chose the right market. You really, truly chose the right market. You probably got to see some fun cricket matches while you're over there as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we chose the right market because I think the market size is there and the needs there, and we're doing it with purpose. Of course, at the end of the day, we have to scale up successfully. We have to be able to provide this service to hopefully millions of people in India. And once we do that, I think we chose the right market will be the right phrase. Maybe we'll get back together in a year from now and I'll be able to give you some fun facts on why we were successful there.
All right, you got a deal on that front. I want to dive into the service. So you lose the urban mobility company, let's just call them, for lack of a better term, the provider, and then you have Yuma Energy, which is providing the energy. Are they different companies, same companies? How are they complementing each other? Is there a clear mission to scale together, and where does Magna fit in that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because sometimes we do a really good job in PR to kind of explain what we're doing, but it's still not clear enough for everybody. So Yulu is the largest electric two-wheeled scooter platform in India operating on a low-speed platform, so less than 25 kilometers per hour. And Magna invested in Yulu in September of 2022. So we're a minority investor in this company, and they're the anchor customer of Yuma Energy, which we also invested in, but we're the majority, so we control it. So the model is simple. Yulu has a bunch of two-wheeled vehicles that require battery swapping. Their customers can rent these vehicles for one trip per day, even per week. In some cases, they keep them for longer than a week because it supports their way of life and it provides a more cost-effective solution for them. And Yuma ends up being basically the energy as a service or battery as a service supplier. And so they go to our depots and in less than 2 minutes, they get a fresh, fully charged battery, and then they're back on the road and progressing on their journey.
I want to, because we didn't get into the final max yet. So Yuma plans to be operating 500 plus stations, up from 85 today by the end of 2023. Are those the final max stations that will be in the dense urban environments there that you're going to scale up?
No, not at all. Actually, the plans are for significantly more. Our focus for the first year is to basically match the demand that Yulu will have with these 10,000 bikes they're bringing to the market over the next 12 months. And we're focused in 3 areas: Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai. And so these 500 stations, which is a mixture of the 3-prong approach that I talked about, cloud, max, and points, will service the need of just Yulu in those 3 cities. And then what we're doing is we're scaling up to offer this battery as a service to other customers outside of Yulu because it'll be an interoperable battery solution for either fleet customers or other OEMs. And as we bring them on board, we'll be increasing the battery flow. And as a result, we'll be increasing the Yuma stations around India based on demand.
Will you eventually scale up to rickshaws or other forms of mobility?
Yep. Currently in our product roadmap, the 3-wheelers and rickshaws need slightly more power than the low-speed Yulu offerings, but we're working on a solution that maybe has 2 or 3 of these batteries being cobbled together to provide the end solution for the power consumptions that they need. But they have millions of rickshaws on the road, and they are all transferring from their current energy consumption to an electric platform. And as we do that, that's another opportunity for Yuma Energy.
Fantastic. Okay, hypothetical. I fly to India, I land at Mumbai, and I want to go on a Yulu micromobility solution. What does it look like? What do I have to download? Walk us through the experience, please.
So once you get through the heat and maybe a little bit of chaos, which is usually what happens when you land in India, you download the app. And if you're on the Yulu app, it'll tell you where there is the closest bikes to where you're standing, similar to the way kick scooters work, if you've ever used one in the US. And then you'll basically use your phone to swap the ID. Well, I guess you'll first create, obviously, an account, but you'll swap it and then you'll start to use it. And then depending on where your battery life is at, if you just used it for a short trip because you're going to dinner, probably you won't have to worry about this. But if you're looking at keeping it for your entire stay, for example, you'll then be pointed to the Yuma app, which will tell you where all the depots are located. And based on your GPS location, will tell you when and where you need to get a swap. And then you show up and you do nothing. Someone will scan your bike. The lid of the seat will pop open. The attendant will swap the battery for you, and you do nothing. You don't pay for anything. You keep on your way, and then you're paying for that service as part of your per kilometer cost with Yulu. So it's pretty seamless.
You're eliminating the problem we have here in America, dead scooters on sidewalks. That problem seems to be going away with your model.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? Again, where the government plays, I think, a really strong influence on how this is going to build up. They want us to be successful. They want electric scooters to be successful. So they're actually giving us space around these dense areas for us to have our scooters. And in a lot of cases, these scooters are being moved around by the consumers very effectively. And there's a penalty for leaving them in the wrong location. So I would say for the most part, can't give you an exact percentage, but maybe in my journeys over the last 18 months, I've only seen a couple of Yulu bikes in the wrong location because there's a penalty if you don't. And so based on the app, you're able to see exactly what you need to use, where you need to use it, and you drop it off in very convenient locations because the government has given us space throughout the city where people can conveniently leave their Yulu scooters.
Convenience is the key. Convenience is the future of mobility. If you want to go next to the coffee shop or next to a place of employment, you don't have to walk very far in the very heat. You're going to do it. You're going to make it easy.
Yeah, and the partnerships are really important, right? There's a lot of companies, not just in India, but as we look at this scaling outside of India, that want this to be an opportunity to attract people to their location, whether it's a convenience store, whether it's a gas station. There's lots of other partners that are interested in scaling up a shareable mobility platform that's based on an electric platform. So when you've got partners that have the same interest as you, the same purpose, as I mentioned earlier, it makes it easier to be successful. Where you're trying to fight the market or fight the government or fight the legislation, those aren't markets we want to operate in today because it's just an uphill battle.
It's an uphill battle, and who wins is the lobbyists and the lawyers. They win in the end of the day because they don't care. They get paid.
You're right.
Looking at other global markets, where do you see the model that you're pioneering in India translate to? Is it perhaps Malaysia, other parts of Southeast Asia, or is it going into the European Union? What other markets do you see embracing this model?
I'll be honest with you, we've already identified 2 or 3 other markets where this will be successful. You've named a few of them. The same characteristics have to apply. It's got to be a market with huge density, large population, mandate to go electric, and the culture around using two-wheelers, and again, not kick scooters, we're talking about mopeds, low-speed motorcycles of sorts, has to be present. If that's present and those other factors are present, we'll be successful in bringing this to some of those Southeast Asia markets. I also think in Europe, there's going to be markets where this will be successful. And I think in certain states in the US will be successful. Will we be using a Yulu scooter or another OEM scooter in Alaska? Probably not. Will it be in California or other markets like that? I think so. I think there's a really great solution here to bring low speed and even mid-speed two-wheelers on an electric platform and give the convenience to consumers to not have to charge at home, to not have to charge at the office, and then swap in less than 2 minutes is not the anxiety that you have to charge a car. It's less than 2 minutes. I've got videos of me swapping batteries for gig workers who are working for Uber Eats and other companies in India, and it really is dumb-proof. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
The investor in me says follow markets where historically two-wheelers work, and they're mostly going to be in Southeast Asia, which is a good thing because we've seen here in the United States, micromobility became a fad. They went public over SPACs, which was a mistake and should have never went public with a SPAC to begin with. And the market seemingly collapses. I don't really have conversations around micromobility, but speaking to yourself and other individuals around the world, especially in emerging markets, micromobility is booming. It's convenient and it's affordable. Do you see those emerging markets really kind of taking micromobility and scaling it because it fits into the demographics of their country, the economics of their country, and frankly, the individuals are already used to seeing two-wheelers on the road? It's not a new form factor?
I think that plays a large factor. I think micromobility as a market, it is a bit crowded. You alluded to some companies coming and going, and I think there'll be lots of companies who are dabbling in it today that will not be around in the long run. You still need to provide a quality product and you need to scale. You have to have volume. And at the end of the day, you have to solve a problem. Just bringing a bunch of kick scooters to a city because they're cool will not solve a problem. It will not give you scale. The market demands, people demand a quality scale product. I think this is where Magna has 65 years of experience bringing quality products to the automotive industry. So quality is something we're focused in. And if we do that well and we bring it to the markets where we're solving a problem and there is scale, I think micromobility will be here for a long time. And we intend to be a player in the micromobility market, whether we're talking about moving people or even moving goods.
If you take Magna's history of quality for what you build for the contract vehicles, some of the finest vehicles are not built by the brands on the badge. They're built by Magna. You have a long history of quality builds. That's going to become, in my opinion, a success as you look to move into these new emerging markets. As you look at new emerging markets, you look at new emerging mobility technologies, we have two-wheelers, we have autonomous vehicles, we have autonomous delivery bots. How are you positioning Magna for success? You're the vice president of Magna New Mobility, so it's like, okay, you're looking at new stuff, but overall, how are you positioning Magna for success?
Yeah, so I think the first decision, and this happened a couple of years ago, was to make sure we had people focused on new mobility. Magna's done very well in the automotive industry. We've also brought to market different technologies that are used maybe in some different markets. But in order to ensure we were dedicated to actually solving problems and having purpose, our CEO, Swami Kotagiri, said we were going to create a group focused around new mobility. That was the first step. So enter me as you mentioned, executive vice president. I'm an executive vice president at Magna, but I'm focused primarily and only on new mobility. So that was the first step. Now we're going to look at the different markets. We're going to look at different products, and we're going to align ourselves with Magna's mission. So you may have heard advancing mobility for everyone and everything. So we want to have a careful eye, not just on how to move people. And you talked about a little bit about autonomous delivery bots. We decided that that was another growing market. And so we started kind of our first entry into that with two things. The first was a partnership with Cartken. And then we also started a proof of concept with our own mile delivery bot in Birmingham, Michigan last year to show our capabilities to bring a level of autonomy to last mile delivery.
Are you building the autonomy technology in-house while also manufacturing the bots?
Yeah, so different in both those cases. In the case of Cartken, it's their autonomous stack. We're building the bot for them, and then we're participating in the whole business cycle and business model with Cartken. So we're not just building it and selling it. Every time the bot delivers goods, we're collecting a portion of the delivery fee, which is part of the model and mandate that we had. We wanted to do more than just build a product and sell it. We wanted to be part of the entire kind of ecosystem of economics. In the case of the Magna delivery bot, which we announced at the automotive show in Detroit, that is our autonomy stack. So we have developed that internally, and it's doing last mile delivery just on a, like I said, a proof of concept basis, but we build it, it's our stack, and it's our system.
Delivery bots have had ups and downs, some successes, some not so much successes. But the one market that seems that it would do really well for is corporate campuses. Is that a market that you see for delivery bots of being scalable? It's a controlled environment, it's clear marked sidewalks, and sometimes folks don't want to walk to the cafeteria to get a sandwich.
Yeah, corporate campuses for sure. University campuses, another huge area where we've deployed actually the Cartken autonomous delivery bots. So they're actually delivering students' favorite, usually fast food, I would guess, solutions to their dorms. And because it is, in a sort of geo-fenced area, it's a little bit safer. They are low speed. So again, they're fairly safe to work on sidewalks and other environments that are usually seen in university campuses. So that's one of the areas where we think it'll grow. We think there's also cities where they will have a huge growth opportunity. But again, it's about picking the market and picking the area where it will work successfully. It's not going to work, in my opinion, in a highly dense. For example, it will not work in India. We will not be deploying Karkin autonomous bots at this point. But will they work in a mall in Japan? Absolutely. Will it work in university campuses in the US? We're already showing that already the past 12 months. So pick the right markets, the growth will be there, and the market size is there as well.
The market's there, the growth is there, but I have a dear friend's name's Roger, and he says, in order for this to work, you have to pass the French fry test. And I said, Roger, what the heck's the French fry test? When you're going to have French fries delivered, they have to be crispy. He goes, until they can figure out how to deliver me crispy French fries, I'm not interested. That's a very good test to pass.
That is a very good test to pass. But unfortunately, because I have two young boys who love to order everything off of Uber Eats, even though it's not the most cost-effective solution, the fries never arrive crispy in today's environment, and we're not using autonomous bots. We're using cars, we're using bikes, we're using delivery services. So I think we have to solve that issue first on how they're being delivered in today's environment. And actually, with an autonomous bot, and we've kind of proven this with our Magna bot, you can actually have different compartments with different types of heating elements that allow it to maybe provide a warm pizza, and maybe in the future, it could also provide some crispy fries.
You alluded to it. That's part of the solution. The biggest solution, according to Roger and all the testing that he's done, packaging. You have to get the packaging right.
That's right.
And if we can figure that out and you can keep the French fries warm, now they're warm and crispy, you've got a customer and your two boys, they're going to be happy. All right, we got crispy fries today.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't French fries. When COVID hit, restaurants went to online delivery. And I was like, how are you going to order from your favorite restaurants? And for me, it wasn't French fries. It was risotto. I'm Italian. I love making risotto. And my favorite restaurant makes this incredible risotto. And I said, I'm going to try ordering this risotto, and it's going to get delivered in 20 minutes, and it's not going to be good. It's going to be overcooked. Sure enough, the risotto arrived, and it was perfect. I mean, it looked like it had just come out of the pan. And I looked at the packaging, and it was completely new. Like, it was actually engineered packaging. So you have hit the nail on the head, Grayson. It's all about the packaging, whether you're getting French fries or you're getting Italian risotto. Once you figure out the packaging, you can apply that to a delivery person, a delivery car, and maybe in the future, a delivery bot.
And perhaps in the future, maybe Magna goes in manufacturing packaging for delivery. You never know. You got the skill set over there.
If you hear about packaging for risotto and you're scratching your head, play back this podcast.
There you go. Matteo, putting this whole conversation together from India to packaging to autonomy, in your opinion, what is the future of mobility?
Well, listen, the mobility landscape is changing. The way people move themselves, whether goods are going to be moved, it's going to be drastically different. We have to be focused on smarter, safest, cleaner mobility. Infrastructure might not be ready for full autonomy, but the advancement in technologies are certainly setting the foundation. And there's never been a more exciting time, if you haven't gotten that from my speaking today, to be in the automotive industry. And it is really a high-tech, complex world. I think Magna is well positioned to help advancing mobility, and we're going to do that for everyone and everything going forward. And I'm truly excited about being in this mix.
You should be excited. Magna will play a very large role in the future of mobility, and I believe they're going to play a very large role in the future of autonomy, to be specific. And Matteo, as we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them today?
Well, first of all, Grayson, I want to thank you for having me on. I can't say I've ever done a podcast before, but I'm happy I did this one today, and it's a nice break from the daily grind. Hopefully not repeating myself. I just think mobility is a really, really exciting area right now. The ecosystem is changing. There's going to be lots of exciting new technology. For those that are curious and wanting to know, I would encourage people to go see what Magna is doing in this area, not just to help our traditional customers, but our new entrants and now our new customers and partners in the mobility ecosystem. And as we start to advance mobility, we're hoping Magna could be at the forefront of that and be supportive of what we're trying to do to move things to be safer, smarter, and have a cleaner mobility in our areas.
I'll say this from my standpoint, from an investor, don't ever count out Magna. Magna will play a role in the future mobility. As Matteo says, mobility is exciting. It's a lot of fun, and we're just getting started. The future is bright, the future is autonomous, and the future is Magna. Matteo, thank you so much for coming on the Road to Autonomy today.
Grayson, thanks for having me and hope to talk to you in the future.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter @Road to Autonomy or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.